The authorization was reversed after surgical completion, someone whispered beyond the curtain. I could not lift my head, but I knew who had signed that guarantee. My parents had not abandoned me before surgery. They waited until I survived. Mom smiled. A sick girl shouldn't manage money. I sent the audit trigger to Elliot, froze the reimbursements, and changed the cottage locks. By dawn, she was leaving voicemails, sobbing that I had stolen her daughter from her own family. My name is Mara Whitaker. I was 34, a medical insurance claims analyst outside Columbus, Ohio. I knew the words deductible, out-of-network, estimated responsibility, prior authorization. On paper, they looked clean. In a recovery room, they felt like hands around your throat. I had spent my life as the Whitaker child who did not make noise. If I hurt, I handled it. If I needed help, I found another way. In our family, sympathy had one favorite address, Blake. My father, Grant, was a semi-retired accountant who could make selfishness sound like budgeting. My mother, Beverly, was all church smiles and sweetheart. Blake, 30, was still finding his path, though that path needed somebody else's wallet. The headaches began as pressure behind my eyes. Then came blurred vision, nausea. In the morning, I fainted beside my kitchen counter. At Mill Creek Regional, the neurosurgeon said the mass was benign, but dangerous. It could take my sight. Before surgery, Beverly kissed my forehead. We're family, sweetheart. Your father and I will take care of everything. Grant signed for the estimated responsibility, post-op medication, home health, and follow-up imaging. He mentioned money my grandmother Ruth Caldwell had left for times like this. Blake stood by the door, thumbs moving over his phone, waiting for news about Iron Ridge Performance Club. Blake hates hospitals, honey, Beverly said. Don't take it personally. The surgery lasted more than 6 hours. When I woke, my throat burned from the breathing tube. My vision was smeared with light. Then I heard 2 voices. The authorization was reversed? After surgery, by the guarantors. A woman from billing came in later. Her badge read Angela Reyes. There has been a reversal on the ACH authorization connected to your post-surgical responsibility, she said. Emergency care is continuing, but discharge support, medications, home care services, and follow-up coverage need review. I stared at her. Did my parents pull it? Angela looked down at the folder. She did not have to answer. Outside my door, machines kept beeping. I lay there with my head split open and understood what Beverly would later try to drown in tears. They had waited for the surgeon to say I was safe. Then they took back the money meant to keep me that way. I did not cry. The man who stepped into my room did not look surprised by the silence. He wore a dark gray suit, carried a leather folder, and moved like every second had been counted. He did not rush to my bed. He stopped beside the nurse. Megan, he said, is Miss Whitaker alert enough to understand legal information? Megan Torres checked my pupils, asked my name, the date, where I was. My answers came slowly, but they came. My skull pulsed under the bandages. She is oriented, Megan said. Tired, medicated, but clear. Only then did he come closer. I'm Elliot Graves, he said. Your grandmother, Ruth Caldwell, named me successor trustee of her trust. Grandma Ruth. The name hit harder than the pain. Ruth had been gone 8 months, but I still heard her in small things. A porch chair creaking, a dish towel snapping, her voice saying, Baby, don't confuse quiet with peace. Elliot placed a cream-colored envelope on my blanket. My name was written across it in Ruth's shaky hand. Mara, if they make you pay for surviving. I stared until the letters blurred. She left this for a specific circumstance, Elliot said. I hoped I would never need to deliver it. My fingers would not obey me, so he opened it. Ruth had created an emergency medical reserve in my name. Not a family fund, not a rainy day account for whichever Whitaker cried loudest. Mine. It covers surgery, neurological treatment, home nursing, medication, rehabilitation, safe housing if my parents could not be appropriate caregivers, and legal protection if anyone interfered. For years, Beverly had called Ruth dramatic. Grant said she worried too much. Blake rolled his eyes whenever she asked who paid for what. She had not worried too much. She had listened. Elliot explained that Grant had never been trustee. He had once been allowed to submit family expenses for reimbursement, nothing more. He had no authority over my medical reserve. There's also an audit trigger, Elliot said. If anyone diverts or delays funds meant for your treatment, I freeze related reimbursements and review the last 12 months. So she knew, I whispered. Elliot's face softened. She suspected patterns. She built safeguards. Megan adjusted my blanket without a word. It was the smallest kindness, and I felt it all the way through me. Then Elliot read the line that broke the room open. Do not beg them to choose you. Let the paperwork show they already chose. I turned toward the window. The Ohio sky was flat and white, the kind of winter light that made everything honest. For the first time, the truth did not arrive as another reason to blame myself. It arrived notarized. Elliot did not raise his voice when he told me what my mother had done. That made it worse. He set one page where my swollen eyes could follow the timestamp. The call had come into his office at 2:17 p.m. while I was still in surgery. Your mother asked whether your medical reserve could be used temporarily for Blake's business deposit, he said. For a moment, the words floated apart. Business deposit? For Iron Ridge Performance Club, a leasehold near Polaris. $56,000 due by 5 p.m. Polaris. Blake had talked about that shopping center for months. Glass front, high ceilings, smoothie bar. I saw him at my hospital door, phone in both hands, annoyed that my tumor had chosen the wrong day. Elliot continued, precise. Mrs. Whitaker said you had already received treatment. Her position was that the immediate crisis had passed. I laughed once. It hurt. The immediate crisis had passed because someone had opened my skull and tried not to let me go blind. Angela stood near the foot of my bed, silent. Megan adjusted my IV. Nobody corrected Elliot. Did my father know? I asked. Elliot slid another page forward. Grant's initial sat on the reversal request, square and neat, the way he signed tax returns. Yes, Elliot said. I had spent half my life translating Grant's coldness into something softer. Dad was practical. Dad worried about money. But there's a line where practical becomes cruel and careful becomes calculated. They thought I was handled, I said. They believed other resources could be used for you later. Later. The word families use when they want you quiet now. Elliot explained that the hospital would not stop emergency care. I knew that from work. But medications, home nursing, imaging, rehab approvals, specialist follow-ups, those were the pieces that kept survival from turning into damage. My parents had pulled at the bridge while I was still crossing it. Elliot would use trusty authority to secure care and trigger the audit. formal notices, frozen reimbursements, 12 months of records, words with edges, words that did not care how pretty Beverly cried. Then he read from Ruth's letter again. People do not have to ask for a throne if everyone keeps building one underneath them. I thought of Blake's failed training app, his truck, his condo deposit, every rescue renamed support. I thought of myself driving to urgent care with blurred vision because nobody wanted to be inconvenienced. Blake had a deadline. I had a hole in my skull. My family had called his emergency louder. Pay what needs to be paid, I told Elliot. My voice was thin, but it was mine. An audit everything. Then they came the next morning with coffee cups and faces made for witnesses. I heard Beverly before I saw her. I am her mother, she said. My daughter had brain surgery. You cannot keep a mother from her child. That was Beverly's gift. She could make rules feel cruel. Megan stepped into my room first and pulled the curtain behind her. Mara, she said, your parents and your brother are here. Do you want them to come in? The question stunned me. All my life, my family entered first and explained later. They opened doors, bank statements, mail, wounds. They called it concern. No one had ever asked what I wanted. I looked at Elliot. He waited with his folder closed. They can come in, I said, but he stays. Beverly rushed in first, blonde hair curled, eyes pink, cardigan soft blue. She looked exactly like the woman people hugged after church. Oh, sweetheart, she breathed, reaching for my hand. I pulled my fingers under the blanket. Her face twitched. Then she pressed her palm to her chest like I had wounded her. Grant came in behind her, jaw tight. Blake stayed near the wall, phone in hand. Dad did not ask how my head felt. Mara, he said, this is a banking issue. Reversals happen. Nobody pulled anything from you. Elliot opened the folder. The reversal request was submitted after surgical completion, he said. It references the guarantor information signed before the procedure. Grant looked at him as if numbers had betrayed him. Beverly shook her head. There must be context. We were scared. Blake had one serious deadline, and your father was trying to keep everything from collapsing. The room went still around the word deadline. Blake finally looked up. Nobody said you wouldn't be taken care of, Mar. March. He only used that when he wanted the past to soften me. I had my skull open, I said. Nobody moved. Beverly whispered, don't talk like that. Like what? Like we meant to hurt you. That was the trick. She wanted my pain to sound like an accusation, so she could defend herself instead of answering for it. Grant leaned closer. You are emotional, understandably. This is not the time to let outsiders turn a family matter into a legal mess. Elliot did not blink. Mr. Whitaker, the legal mess began when post-surgical support was interrupted. Beverly's tears stopped too quickly. For 1 second, I saw the woman behind the mother, angry, cornered, calculating who could still be persuaded. Then she softened her voice again. We are your family, Mara. I stared at the blanket where her hand had tried to land. No, I said, barely louder than the machines. You were my emergency contact. And for the first time, those did not feel like the same thing. Grant was calmest when cornered. He stepped closer to my bed, lowering his voice. Not angry, worse than angry, reasonable. Mara, You just came out of major surgery, he said. No one expects you to understand every financial detail. Beverly touched his sleeve. Honey, the medication can make everything feel larger than it is. Everything. They had reversed support after the surgeon closed me up. They had tried to move my medical reserve toward Blake's gym. Now they stood in my room and called it a feeling. Megan looked from their faces to mine. She did not interrupt like a hero in the movie. She did something better. She took out her charting tablet. Patient is alert and oriented, and she said, understands current medical and financial concerns, able to state preferences. Beverly stiffened. Are you suggesting my daughter needs protection from me? I'm documenting my patient's status, Megan said. My patient, not their daughter, not Blake's obstacle, not the family problem. Mine. Elliot turned to me. Mara, you may decide who receives medical updates. You may also direct billing communication through counsel or a patient advocate. Grant gave a short laugh. Counsel? You're making her afraid of her own family. I looked at him then. He had signed school forms, tax returns, checks for Blake, Christmas cards with my name spelled correctly because Beverly checked them first. He knew ink. He knew consequences. You signed before they cut into my head, I said. Then you pulled back after you knew I lived. His face tightened. Beverly whispered, Sweetheart, don't punish us because you're scared. I'm not punishing you. The words scraped my throat raw. I'm removing your access. Elliot handed me the forms. My hand trembled so badly, Megan steadied the clipboard, not the pen. I signed to revoke Beverly and Grant's permission to receive updates. I changed my emergency contact to Nadine Price, the patient advocate. Billing would go through Elliot, no exceptions. Blake pushed off the wall. This is insane. Over money? Light stabbed behind my eyes. No, Blake. Over what money proved. Beverly's mouth opened, but no tears came. Grant said, You will regret shutting out your family. Maybe once that would have broken me. Thanksgiving silence, unanswered birthday texts, church people whispering in grocery aisles. But fear has a strange shape after surgery. Mine had narrowed to a door I could finally close. Megan placed the signed papers in the chart. Elliot gathered the copies. Beverly looked at me as if I had become someone she had not raised. She was right. I had become someone she could no longer reach without permission. Elliot did not bring accusations first. He brought copies. That was his way. No raised voice, no dramatic speech, no promise that justice would arrive wearing a badge. Just a neat stack of bank records clipped together, each page more honest than my family had ever been. He came into my hospital room late in the afternoon, when the light had turned gold against the blinds and my pain medicine made the edges of things swim. Megan checked my chart before he spoke. I noticed that now. People who respected boundaries asked before entering them. I found 2 entries that need your confirmation, Elliot said. He placed the first page on the rolling tray. Mara Neurological Consultation Reserve, $19,250. The second page carried nearly the same line. Mara Follow-Up Consultation Reserve, $19,250. My name sat there in black ink, dressed up like care. I never had those appointments, I said. You're certain? I almost laughed. Mr. Graves, I remember every appointment I didn't get, because those were the ones that had stayed with me. The neurologist Beverly told me to postpone because insurance was, quote, being stubborn. The imaging follow-up Grant said could wait until after the holidays. The specialist my mother called a little aggressive because he wanted answers before Blake's investor dinner. Elliot turned another page. The first payment had gone toward flights, hotel, registration fees, and booth access at a fitness equipment expo in Denver. Blake had posted pictures from that trip. I remembered them because Beverly shared one with the caption, "So proud of our son chasing his dream." I had liked that photo from my couch with an ice pack over my eyes. The second payment led to a vendor invoice for sample machines, 2 commercial rowing units, a resistance tower, and a branded consultation package for Iron Ridge Performance Club. My stomach rolled. The room smelled suddenly too clean. So my medical reserve bought his gym toys. Elliot's jaw tightened just once. It appears funds marked for your care were used for business-related expenses. Business-related. He was careful. The papers did not need him to be angry. Blake tried calling twice while Elliot was there. I watched his name flash on my phone and let it go dark. Then Elliot showed me the email. It was from Beverly to Grant, sent 4 months before my surgery. Mark it under Mara's consult reserve. Medical lines don't get questioned as fast. I read it once, then again. There are betrayals that shout, and there are betrayals that sit quietly in a sentence your mother typed while drinking coffee. Beverly had not been confused. She had not been overwhelmed. She had known exactly which drawer to hide the theft in. I thought of her hands folding church bulletins, her voice telling women in the fellowship hall that motherhood was sacrifice. I thought of every time she called me sensitive for noticing where the family money flowed. Elliot said, "This triggers a deeper review." Good. My voice came out steadier than I felt. He looked at me, waiting. I touched the edge of the email with one finger. "You don't get to spend my emergency and call it family." Outside the room, someone laughed softly at the nurse's station. Life kept moving, rude and ordinary. Inside, my mother became evidence. The ride out of the hospital felt longer than 45 minutes. Every bump climbed into my skull. Nadine Price sat beside me in the medical transport van, reading the discharge instructions softly. Steroids, anti-nausea pills, pain control, no lifting over 10 pounds, follow-up imaging in 3 weeks. I listened like a person being handed rules for a body I no longer trusted. Ruth's cottage waited at the end of a narrow lane lined with pines. It was small, white, and stubborn, with green shutters and a porch that leaned left. As a girl, I had shelled peas there while my grandmother told me, "A quiet woman can still own the room." Now that old wood smelled like safety. Nadine unlocked the door with the key Elliot had mailed to her. Inside, someone had prepared everything. A pill organizer sat on the kitchen counter. Water lined the lower shelf of the refrigerator. A notepad listed Megan's visits and Elliot's line. Beside the coffee maker was a folded note in Ruth's handwriting. "Rest here before anyone asks you to carry them again." I pressed the paper to my chest and stood very still. That first week did not look brave. It looked like sitting on the bathroom floor because the room tilted. It looked like crackers for dinner because soup made me gag. It looked like dropping a spoon 3 times and crying harder over that than over the incision under my hair. Recovery does not care who wronged you. It still makes you ask for help opening child-proof caps. Megan came every other day. She checked my vitals, inspected the wound, and never asked whether I had made things right with my parents. When I forgot the word for windowsill, she waited. When sunlight hurt, she closed the curtains without making me feel dramatic. That was new. My phone filled with missed calls. Mom, Dad, Blake, Mom again. Then church numbers I recognized but had never saved. I did not answer. The cottage had its own voice. Floorboards settling, heat ticking through old vents, wind moving through the pines. It had Ruth's yellow mug and her worn Bible, full of margin notes that sounded more like warnings than prayers. One afternoon, I made it from the bedroom to the porch without stopping. I sat in Ruth's wooden chair, wrapped in a quilt, looking down the lane my parents would take to reach me. For the first time, distance felt like mercy. I was not healed. Some mornings I woke terrified that the blurred vision had returned. But fear had walls now, locks, records, a trustee, a nurse who charted truth, and a grandmother who had built a door out before I knew I needed one. I kept Ruth's note on the kitchen counter. Carry them again. Not today. Beverly posted the picture on a Thursday morning. It was an old Thanksgiving photo. Blake stood behind her, smiling like a man who had never seen a bill. Grant had one hand on Beverly's shoulder. I was near the edge, half cropped. The caption was pure Beverly. Praying for my daughter's healing, not only in body, but in heart. Sometimes outside voices can make a hurting person forget who truly loves her. Family is still family, even when pain divides us. She did not name Elliot. She did not mention the money that had wandered into gym equipment. She did not have to. By noon, the comments had turned into a hymn of judgment. Poor Beverly, a mother's heart breaks hardest. Surgery can change people. Bitterness is its own illness. I sat at Ruth's kitchen table with the blinds half closed, reading while an anti-nausea pill dissolved under my tongue. My hand shook so hard, I set the phone down. Then the call started. Aunt Carol said I was letting strangers get between blood. My cousin Trevor texted that Blake claimed I was ruining his business because I had always resented him. Someone from Beverly's Bible study sent a praying hands emoji and a sentence about forgiveness being cheaper than lawyers. Cheaper. Forgiveness had always been the family coupon they handed me after taking full price for my life. I wanted to post everything. The ACH record, Beverly's email, Denver, the vendor invoice. I wanted every woman who typed poor mother to see what that mother had hidden under my name. Elliot told me not to. Not yet, he said. Public anger feels good for 10 minutes. A clean record lasts longer. So I saved screenshots, downloaded voicemails, and put every message into a folder labeled Beverly Campaign. If your blood is boiling for Mara, leave a like for the channel and tell us in the comments what advice you would give her. Should she expose Beverly publicly or let the evidence speak where it hurts most? Stay with this story, because what waits behind the next door will change who still gets to call themselves family. That evening, I opened Ruth's back door. Cold air came in, sharp with pine and rain. For a few minutes, the cottage was only a cottage again. Then headlights turned into the lane. Not my parents' SUV. A dark sedan stopped near the porch. Aaron Maddox stepped out with an umbrella and Blake's ring catching the porch light. She looked smaller than she had at family dinners. Less polished, less certain. Mara, she called. I need to ask you something. I wrapped Ruth's quilt tighter around my shoulders. For the first time since Beverly's post, I smiled. Not because Aaron was on my side, because somebody from Blake's world had come to the right door. Aaron did not step inside like an enemy. That almost made it harder. She folded her umbrella on Ruth's mat, coat damp, hair loosened by rain. At family dinners, she looked polished beside Blake, like proof that his future was respectable. Now she looked tired. "I'm not here to fight," she said. "Then don't." Her eyes moved to the pill bottles, the blanket around my shoulders, the cane near my chair. For 1 second, Blake's story had to stand beside my body. "He says Elliot is freezing everything," she said. "The lease, vendors, marketing. One call from you could fix it." Blake always did love a shortcut. "That location is rare, Mara." "He's worked for this." I looked at the ring on her hand, bright enough to make a lie look expensive. "Did he tell you what paid for Denver?" She blinked. I pulled 3 pages from Elliot's folder, slowly, because movement still tilted the room. The trust entry under my name, the Denver Expo receipt, the invoice for sample machines. Erin leaned over Ruth's table. Rain tapped the window while she read. "That can't be right." "No, it isn't right, but it's accurate." She sat down. "Blake told me the family helped him. He said your grandmother left money for everybody." "My grandmother left money for care. Mine." "Grant said it was temporary." "Temporary is what people call it when they plan to return what they had no right to take." I pointed to the first line. "That was supposed to help cover neurological consultation. I postponed care because Beverly said insurance was complicated. Meanwhile, Blake got Denver." Her thumb touched the ring. "He may not have known how it was labeled." I wanted to hate her for that, but I had spent years sanding my family's sharp edges until cuts looked like accidents. So I slid Beverly's email across the table. Medical lines don't get questioned as fast. Erin read it twice. "That's Beverly," she whispered. "Yes, but not Blake. Maybe not on that email." She lifted her eyes. "Did you ever ask why my medical reserve was paying for his equipment?" The question landed because I did not throw it. Her face changed slowly, not into belief, into fear of what belief might cost. I asked where the deposit came from. He told me not to embarrass him in front of investors. Oh, there it was, a crack thin as a strand of hair. I leaned back, dizzy from sitting upright. "Erin, I don't need you to like me. I need you to stop letting him use your trust as storage." At the door, she turned. "If I find something," she said, "where do I send it?" "To Elliot." She nodded and stepped onto the porch. The diamond flashed once in the light. This time, it looked less like a promise than a warning. Beverly knew how to make an ambush smell like dinner. She came up Ruth's porch steps with a covered dish, Grant behind her holding tulips in a manila folder. Through the window, they looked almost normal. Parents visiting a recovering daughter. I opened the door with the chain still on. "Mara, honey," Beverly said. "It's cold. Can we please come in?" Grant lifted the flowers. "We are not here to argue." And that was usually when the argument had already been planned. I should have told them to leave, but my medication had changed that morning, and my skull felt packed with wet sand. I unhooked the chain. Beverly moved straight to the kitchen, setting down chicken soup and cornbread like proof of motherhood. She fussed with a spoon, wiped a counter already clean, and said Ruth would hate seeing the family divided. Grant placed the folder on the table. "There is a practical way through this," he said. I sat across from him, Ruth's quilt around my shoulders. "Practical for whom?" "For everyone."
Beverly turned, eyes shiny on command. Your brother is losing everything, Mara. Investors are nervous. The landlord won't hold that space forever.
There it is, I said. The soup had a deadline. Grant slid out a document titled Family Settlement Agreement. Sign this and we can stop the bleeding, he said. We reimburse a portion. Blake keeps the lease alive. Elliot stops digging through private family matters. Private. That word had covered so much dirt in our house. I tried to read, but the line shifted. Beverly lowered her voice until it almost sounded tender. Please don't make your father look like a criminal. I looked at Grant. Did he need my help for that? His hand flattened on the table. You are being cruel because you are hurt. No, I am hurt because you were cruel. For one moment, Beverly's face emptied. Then she laid the pen beside my hand. Grant tapped the paper. This says no one acted with bad intent, just confusion under stress. I saw phrases jump out. Release of civil claims. No further audit requests. Mutual non-disparagement. Post-surgical misunderstanding. They wanted my signature to become their clean shirt. Grant pushed the pen closer. Sign it while you still have a family to come back to. The room tilted. Not from fear, from medication, pressure behind my eyes, and the ugly patience of people waiting for weakness to do their work. A knock hit the door. Before anyone moved, Megan Torres called from the porch. Mara, it's your home care visit. Beverly whispered. This is family business. I looked at the pen, then at the door. No, I said. This is evidence. And I called for Megan to come in. Megan did not ask why my parents were there. She looked at the folder, the pen near my hand, Beverly's soup, and my face. Good nurses notice the room before they touch the patient. Mara, she said, did you request this meeting? Beverly moved first. She is our daughter. We brought food. Megan kept her eyes on me. No, I said. They came without calling. Grant's chair scraped. This is a private family conversation. It became part of my visit when my patient looked ready to pass out, Megan said. My patient again. Megan checked my pulse, asked about the medication change, and noted that my hands were trembling. She did not accuse anyone. She documented. In my old family, truth had to survive whoever cried hardest. In Megan's tablet, it only needed a timestamp. I called Elliot. He arrived in less than an hour, coat still wet. He did not greet Beverly's tears or accept coffee. He sat at Ruth's table and read the document from the first line to the last. Nobody spoke. Grant had always trusted paper when paper served him. Watching him fear it was almost beautiful. Elliot tapped one clause. Mara releases all civil claims related to trust reimbursements. Another tap. She agrees there will be no further audit request. A third. She states the dispute arose from post-surgical confusion. Beverly pressed a tissue under her eye. We are trying to keep this from destroying the family. No, Elliot said. You are trying to make a recovering patient certify a false version of events. Grant's face went red. Careful. Elliot looked up. Mr. Whitaker, you brought a legal release to a woman 4 weeks out from brain surgery after a medication adjustment without her counsel present. I am being careful. The kitchen went very quiet. Beverly turned to me, voice breaking in the exact place it always did. After everything we did for you? I thought of the reverse authorization. Denver, the email, her Facebook prayers with teeth.
My recovery is not your alibi, I said. Her tears vanished. There she was, not the church mother,
Not the woman with cornbread and soft cardigans. Just Beverly, furious that the child she had trained to absorb pain had learned to name it.
Elliot slid the agreement into a clear sleeve. This will be preserved as an exhibit. Grant stood. You are making a mistake, Mara. I was tired enough to sink through the floor. Still, I looked at him. No, I made the mistake when I thought keeping quiet made me kind. Megan stayed until they left. Beverly took the soup.
Grant forgot the flowers. When the door closed, I locked it myself. The click was small. The life behind it was not. 2 days after my parents left, Elliot called instead of emailing. That alone told me the paper was bad.
Mara, he said, I found an addendum in Ruth's estate file. I need to show it to you. He arrived near dusk, when pine shadows crossed the porch. I had made it to the kitchen table without the cane,
which felt like victory until I saw his face. He placed 3 pages in front of me. The first described Ruth's cottage, the land, old garage, even the lane to the county road. The second changed the designation from sole residential use by Mara Whitaker to family use property. I read that phrase twice. Family use, I said. If accepted, Elliot said, Grant and Beverly could have argued for access, management, or shared benefit. Shared benefit. Whitaker language for taking the room and leaving me the broom. The signature is the issue, he said. He slid Ruth's old signature beside the new one. Even with my vision tender, I saw it. Ruth's real R leaned with stubborn confidence. The new one shook differently. Not weak, just wrong. The date also concerns me, Elliot added. It falls during the week she was on increased pain medication. My grandmother had been dying then. Beverly had told me Ruth was confused, too tired for visitors, easily upset. I believed her because it was easier than wondering why she stood between me and a sick old woman. Elliot took out his phone. Ruth left this message 3 weeks before she passed. He pressed play. For a second, only breath came through. Then Ruth's voice, thin but unmistakable. Elliot, it's Ruth. Linda keeps saying Mara won't need a place if she just learns to forgive. Don't let them take the cottage. That child would need a door out. I covered my mouth, not because I was crying, because if I let sound out, it might not stop. Ruth had known. She had seen Beverly's sweetness turning toward the lock. She had heard Grant's practical tone circling the deed. She had understood Blake would call any room useful if he could stand in the center and be admired. All this time, I thought the cottage was a gift. It was a rescue plan. Elliot said he would send the addendum to a handwriting expert and forward the timeline for elder financial exploitation review. No promises, just steps that made liars hate paper. I looked around Ruth's kitchen at the chipped blue tile, bread box, the window where dark pines moved in the wind. They wanted the money, I said. Then the records, then this. Yes, Elliot said softly. I touched Ruth's voicemail transcript. Don't ask a woman to be polite, I said. Elliot folded his hands. No one in this room is asking that. Outside, the lane disappeared into night. Aaron's message came at 11:42 that night. I sat at Ruth's kitchen table with ginger tea cooling between my hands. The cottage was quiet except for the furnace. I almost did not open it. I was tired of doors with monsters behind them. Then I saw the attachment. Blake to Beverly. Sent the morning of my surgery. Mom, if Mara's surgery is already scheduled, can't the reserve be floated for 48 hours? She won't even know until later. I can't lose this location over timing. I read it until the words stop looking like words. He had known. Maybe not every line Beverly hid or every number Grant moved, but he knew enough. He knew the money was mine. He knew I was under anesthesia. He knew I could not object until after. And he called it timing. My phone rang. Aaron's name lit the screen. Mara? Her voice shook. I found it in the project account. Blake forgot I still had access. Did you ask him? He said I was snooping. Of course he did. In my family, the sin was never taking. The sin was noticing. Aaron confronted him near downtown Westerville. Blake was packing boards for investors, acting as if Iron Ridge had been delayed by bad luck instead of theft. When she showed him the email, he did not look ashamed. He looked inconvenienced. He said your reserve wasn't empty, Aaron whispered. Grant would put it back. Then I asked if he knew you could have woken up without support, home nursing, or medication settled. What did he say? Her breath caught. He said, Mara always lands on her feet. There it was, the family model stripped clean. I was not strong to them. I was reusable. Blake said I was weaponizing surgery. Elliot had poisoned me. Everyone knew I hated being ordinary while he built something real. Something real. I touched the tender line beneath my hair. My pain had not been real enough. Ruth's warning had not been real enough until paper gave it weight. Send everything to Elliot, I said. I already did. And then I heard Blake in the background. Aaron, give me the phone. Her voice changed. Not louder, cleaner. No. Do you know what you're doing to us? I finally do. The line muffled. A door closed. When Aaron came back, wind moved around her. Mara, she said. I'm sorry I defended him. You believe the man you plan to marry. That doesn't make me innocent. No, it makes you awake. Before we hung up, she said, he called me a traitor. I looked at Ruth's note on the counter. No, he called you that because you stopped being useful. The next morning, Elliot sent one line. Aaron's documents were preserved. Blake was no longer the brother who did not know. He knew I would be unconscious and asked for 48 hours anyway. The mediation center sat on the second floor of a brick office building beside a dentist and a tax preparer. No marble steps, no judge's bench. No dramatic hallway full of reporters, just beige carpet, a coffee station, and a receptionist who asked everyone to sign in with the same soft voice. That made it worse. Cruelty looks cleaner when it wears business casual. I wore a navy sweater and a scarf loose enough not to press near the healing line under my hair. Nadine had driven me. Elliot walked beside me with 2 binders and no expression except focus. Inside the conference room, Beverly sat close to Grant, tissue already folded in her hand. She wore pearls and a pale cardigan, the uniform of a woman prepared to be pitied. Grant had a legal pad. Blake stared at the table like the wood had personally insulted him. Aaron sat at the far end, not beside Blake. He noticed. Everyone did. Harriet Lang, the mediator, introduced herself and explained the purpose. Probate-related trust dispute, reimbursement review, possible settlement, no interruptions. Her voice was calm in the way winter roads are calm before black ice. Grant spoke first. We want dignity preserved, he said. This family has suffered enough. I looked at Elliot's closed binder. Beverly dabbed her eyes. I was scared of losing both my children. Mara was in surgery. Blake's future was collapsing. A mother makes imperfect decisions under impossible pressure. Blake leaned forward. This can be fixed. I lose my lease. Investors walk. She knows that. She. Not Mara. Not my sister. Just the obstacle across the table. Harriet turned to our side. Mr. Graves? Elliot opened the first binder. He did not call anyone evil. He did not say betrayal. He did not raise his voice enough for the walls to notice. He placed the ACH reversal record on the table. Submitted after surgical completion. Then Angela Reyes's billing note. Post-operative support placed under review. Then the trust provision Ruth had written. Emergency medical reserve. Sole benefit of Mara Whitaker. Beverly's tissue stopped moving. Elliot set down the phone log from his office, showing Beverly's call during my surgery. Then the Denver receipts. The vendor invoice for Blake's equipment. The 2 entries carrying my name as if my illness had been a storage box. Grant tried to interrupt. Context matters. Harriet lifted one hand. You will have time to respond. Elliot continued. The email appeared next. Medical lines don't get questioned as fast. There are sentences that change the temperature of a room. That one took all the air from it. Beverly stared at the paper, not like she regretted it, like she hated that it had survived. Elliot slid out the settlement agreement from Ruth's kitchen table, sealed in a clear sleeve. Beside it went Megan's visit note. Patient medicated, trembling. Legal document presented without counsel. Grant's pen stopped. Then came the cottage addendum. Family use property. My hands folded under the table so nobody would see them shake. Last, Elliot placed a transcript of Ruth's voicemail in front of Harriet. Don't let them take the cottage. That child will need a door out. For the first time all morning, Beverly looked at me without performing. Her eyes were dry and colder than the room. Beverly stared at Ruth's voicemail transcript. Grant watched his attorney. Blake watched Aaron. Aaron did not look back. Elliot placed one final email in the center of the table. Mom, if Mara's surgery is already scheduled, can't the reserve be floated for 48 hours? She won't even know until later. I can't lose this location over timing. Blake's face changed before his mouth did. That was taken out of context. Aaron's voice was quiet. No, Blake. I asked for the context. You yelled. You went through my account. I managed that account for the business I helped you sell. His chair scraped. You're doing this to me? Harriet looked up. Mr. Whitaker, sit down. He sat, but the prince my parents had built was cracking in public. Beverly turned to me. Her tears returned. You're really going to do this to your mother? For 34 years, that sentence would have sent me backward. I would have explained, softened, apologized. Not that day. Beverly, I said. Her whole body flinched. You did this to your daughter. Grant slapped his palm on the table. Not hard enough to be violence, hard enough to reveal him. She survived, he said. Blake was about to lose everything. There it was. No accounting error, no family confusion, no stress, just the math. I was alive,
so I could be moved to the smaller column. The room would still.
Nobody rescued him from his own mouth. I looked at my father. In this family, my survival was never enough to count as everything, Grant's attorney whispered in his ear. Grant's face strained. Harriet called a break. When we returned, my parents no longer asked for dignity. They asked for damage control. The agreement was not forgiveness. It was accounting. Grant and Beverly would restore every misused dollar. The gym deposit, Denver, vendor equipment, hidden household expenses, and medical lines carrying my name. They would be removed from any role connected to Ruth Caldwell Trust. The cottage addendum would go for handwriting review, with elder exploitation referral preserved. No direct contact with me about trust, billing, or medical care. Blake said nothing when Iron Ridge's deposit was disputed. Erin slid her engagement ring off under the table. A small sound. A lifetime ending for someone who thought consequences were things other people carried. When the papers were gathered, Beverly tried one last time. "Mara," she whispered, "please." I stood slowly, one hand on the chair until the room stopped moving. "You didn't lose a daughter," I said. "You lost access." Then I walked out with Elliot beside me, not because I needed no one, but because I had learned who deserved to stand close. Consequences do not usually kick down the door. They come by certified mail. Blake lost the Polaris location first. The landlord would not hold space for a business tied to a trust dispute. Investors called it unfortunate timing, then stopped returning his calls. Iron Ridge Performance Club never opened. When Blake blamed me online, Elliot sent a letter with the timeline attached. The post disappeared in less than an hour. Erin returned the ring by insured mail. No note. Just a velvet box arriving at Grant and Beverly's house like a verdict. Grant retired early after longtime clients moved their accounts. Men like Grant survive on trust, and trust does not like probate filings. Beverly's fall was quieter. Women who once left praying hands under her posts stopped saving her a seat at church luncheons. After Elliot's warning, she deleted months of captions. They sold the house that spring because money had to be put back where it was taken from. Beverly called it downsizing. I called it math. Healing came without music. I walked from bed to porch, porch to mailbox, mailbox to the end of the pine lane. Some mornings my head still ached. Some words still hid from me. But I stopped apologizing for needing time. I changed the locks. I signed a new healthcare proxy, advance directive, emergency contact forms, and every document Nadine placed in front of me. Beverly and Grant had no access to my medical updates, my billing, my home, or my peace. 6 months later, Beverly sent a letter asking when she had stopped seeing my pain as real. It was the closest thing to remorse I had ever received. Still, she mourned the mother she wanted people to think she was. I read it twice and put it in Ruth's bread box. I did not burn it. I did not forgive it. 1 year after surgery, Elliot came with the final accounting. The trust was restored. The cottage was mine. At the bottom of the folder was Ruth's last letter. "If you are reading this in that house, baby, it means you lived. Do not waste the miracle making them less ashamed of what they chose." I opened every window. Pine air swept through the kitchen. My phone buzzed on the table. "Mom." I watched the screen until it went dark. My hand did not shake. Then I turned it face down and stepped onto Ruth's porch. I did not need my family to choose me. I had already chosen myself. Life teaches us that love without respect is control wearing a familiar face. If this story moved you, please leave a like, share your thoughts and comments, and tell us where you're listening from. Thank you for staying until the end. Wishing you good health, and I will see you again in the next story on Revenge Glow.